Austin, good to see you. I really like today's topic, hidden and not so hidden fees, penalties, and taxes in retirement. It's not easy to determine what you'll need to live on in retirement. That calculation, of course, is made even more difficult because there can be a few surprise expenses and some penalties that can last a lifetime. So we're going to break down those hidden costs in order of severity. Let's talk about the IRMAA penalty. What do we need to know?
This is a big one, Aaron, certainly a big one. So the IRMAA penalty refers to your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. So if you earn over a certain level, which you can see here on the chart, it is based off of your modified adjusted gross income, and it operates on a 2-year look back. So what that means is to determine if you will pay these penalties in 2023, we're going to look at your modified adjusted gross income from 2021. It's a 2-year look back, as I mentioned. Now, the good news is this is a rather short-term penalty, even if you do have it, because it's reevaluated every year. And also, you can apply for a waiver of this penalty using Form SSA 44. And if you have a qualifying event, this penalty could be eliminated for you. So be sure to check that out.
Okay. Now, how about the Medicare Part B and D penalty? This penalty could be for life, so that's a big one. How do we avoid it?
Yeah, it's certainly a very, very onerous penalty if we do not avoid it. And really, it's pretty easy to avoid, I will say. And we do that by being sure that we're enrolling in Medicare on time, right? So we all have that initial enrollment period, which is your IEP. And if we enroll during that period, which is 3 months before the month of your 65th birthday, the month of your 65th birthday, and 3 months following the month of your 65th birthday, so it's a 7-month window, or if you're still working at your employer when you turn 65 and you have credible coverage, you may delay enrolling in Part B and Part D as long as you have that credible coverage, and then you will qualify for a special enrollment period or an SEP. So be sure that you're making cognizant of those timelines rather, and you're enrolling on time, because that's how we're going to avoid those penalties. And as you mentioned, they're for life.
Right. Tie a string around your finger for sure. All right. Next, let's talk about inflation. I was surprised to learn that only 42% of people have ever calculated what they'll need to live on in retirement. And even when we do, we often fail to account for inflation. And I don't know how you can even avoid it when we're talking about numbers, Austin, that we haven't seen since the 80s.
That's right. We all know, and we've experienced it, right, over the last 18 months or so. Inflation is the highest it's been in 4 decades. So finding out, how much we need to live on in retirement is really the number one goal, right? We can't do any planning without that number, but it's really, really important to account for inflation, the general increase in your cost of living over time, because if you're like any of us, Aaron, right, we don't want our lifestyle to go backwards. We're all used and accustomed to a certain level of lifestyle that we've been leading, and we want to be sure that we're able to maintain that. And the only way to ensure that we're able to maintain that lifestyle is to account for inflation. So in any financial planning projections, we really want to be sure that we're accounting for inflation, increasing the cost of living that we're expecting each and every year over the duration of our lifetime.
Right. And now let's talk about taxes, because they can, of course, be a huge expense in retirement without some proper planning, especially if you have no tax-free money to tap.
I would argue taxes are the single biggest impediment for many folks heading into retirement.
Yeah.
Number one, because they're so unknown, right? We know that January 1, 2026, tax rates will increase and revert back to what they were in 2017. But beyond that, we really don't have any certainty to where tax rates will go. So this is something we spend a lot of time here at Patriot Wealth discussing, is tax diversity and tax allocation. So we're all familiar with an investment allocation, right? Our mix between stocks, bonds, and cash. But many of us are not as familiar with tax allocation. Where and what types of accounts are our investment assets held in, right? Is that a traditional IRA, the tax deferred bucket, or perhaps that Roth IRA, the tax free bucket, and then something like a brokerage account, which would be the taxable bucket, the money in which you receive 1099s on. So having tax diversity heading into retirement really gives us greater optionality and flexibility when planning where and when to pull money from in retirement. And I think if you have a financial plan that does not account for that, you're missing a large piece of the puzzle.
If you don't have a tax plan, you don't have a retirement plan. Absolutely. And I know that is what you specialize in, Austin. So if somebody wants to talk to you more about any of these hidden fees or this proactive tax planning, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so you can send us an email at info@patriotwealthnc.com or give us a call at 919-322-4113.
All right. Austin, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.